Back to Families in Action right here on KHTS AM 1220, your hometown station. My name is Michael Doherty. I'm here with Cary Quashen, the host of Families in Action, and we have been talking about getting addicted.
So should we call him Michael Doherty or should we call him the Silver Fox?
You're already calling me the Silver Fox.
Okay.
You're already doing it.
Okay, just play.
Okay, Cary, before we continue on, because we want to talk about marijuana, and especially the fact that it looks likely that they're going to try to legalize it here or legalize it here in California.
That's better. Legalize it.
And across the country, and everybody thinks that's no big deal. But hey, let's talk about something else for a moment. This is from the Action File. Really good news from Washington, D.C. The House of Representatives has passed the Comprehensive Addiction and Recovery Act, or the CARA bill. This bill authorizes the Attorney General and the Secretary of Health and Human Services to establish an interagency task force to designate programs and allot funding to each state to combat the opioid addiction. Hello, CARA encourages individual states to create a plan that addresses the following topics: access to treatment, including medically assisted treatment, substance use prevention, access to overdose reversal medication, law enforcement training, and reforms in the criminal justice system. There is no new funding provision for the CARA bill. However, the White House and the Office of National Drug Control Policy is proposing that an additional funding in the amount of $1.1 billion with a B be attached to the CARA bill when it goes to the Senate on Monday. That's today.
It looks to me like the government's finally getting panicked here. They're starting to worry because, well, we're losing almost 50,000 people a year to just overdoses. That's just drug overdoses, not including car crashes because of drugs, suicides, homicides, rapes. I can go on forever because of drugs. So the federal government are saying now that we have an epidemic. I've been screaming we have an epidemic for over 5 years. I said it's going to be worse than the 70s. More people are going to die. This is horrible. Now everybody's screaming the same thing. Pretty scary stuff.
It is.
But at least, and you know what you just said that really I want to comment on, is there is access to treatment these days. I mean, there's places out there that are county ran that will take people, but I'll tell you what there is no access to: detox. And these county programs will not take somebody strung out. So that's it. So are there really access to treatment? I guess not. Because all these heroin addicts and opioid addicts, there's nothing they can do.
Easy for you to say.
So you know what they're doing? They're going into the ERs, and they're saying they're suicidal, and they're being put on holds, and they're letting the ERs and psychiatric hospitals detox them. And that don't work because it works for 2 or 3 days, and they're back out, still strung out. So yeah, hopefully this $1.1 billion
$1.1 billion
will help in some way. To me, it seems a little shy.
Well, I'm sure in the scheme of things, and as bad as the whole epidemic has gotten, that they're going to have to put more money into it than that, I'm sure.
I think they're going to find out that it's going to be a little more difficult than $1.something billion.
Wow. But it's a good start. Let's hope that the funding happens.
Yes.
I don't know where they'll come up with the 1.1. Please don't take it out of my Social Security.
It's coming from us. Of course, we're paying for it. But
hello.
What are you going to do?
Cary, you touched on it in the first part of the program, talking about marijuana specifically. And you and I have talked about this off microphone a lot. We're totally against it, but it really, more and more states are jumping on the bandwagon to legalize marijuana, and it looks like California is probably going to follow suit. There is some good news along the way that we could report, and that is that the initiative is going to be on the November ballot to legalize marijuana and hemp in the state of California. Santa Clarita residents aren't likely to see dispensaries popping up all over town, even if it passes.
That's a good thing.
It is a good thing. Local
laws. I know they were trying to open them up here a couple years ago.
Medical marijuana.
Frank Ferry and the rest of the people really were strongly against it.
Hooray for
good.
them.
Yeah. And Bob Keller and everybody else. Did you see that commercial with Bob Keller with a little shotgun?
No.
Did you see that? It was pretty funny. I saw it on Facebook. There'll be no drugs in my
Good for him.
Props to Bug Kill.
Well, we could say a lot of things about medical marijuana dispensaries, but the only thing I'm going to say is any place that you can walk into and get a marijuana stick because you have carpal tunnel syndrome just doesn't work for me. You know what I'm saying? I think it's a little freely dispensed.
I was talking to some docs the other day, and I talk a lot of docs, but I mean, everybody says the same thing. 95% of the people walking into medical marijuana clinics, if you don't believe me, go to Venice or Hollywood. Go to Venice on a Saturday or Sunday and see what's going on. 95% are youngsters trying to get a legal card so they can stay legally high. And by the way, there's these guys standing out that are pretty high trying to pull people in. And I've actually seen in the LA Weekly, refer somebody to our clinic, get a free massage. Interesting. So does that sound like a medical place?
Not hardly.
Yeah, not hardly. And what kind of massage are you getting? I mean, it's
a family show. Never mind.
It's such a gimmick right now.
Never mind.
And by the way, I'm not one of those counselors that are completely against people that are sick and dying having something to make them feel better.
Right.
What I am against is making it easy for our children to get high and become addicted and have problems and lose more people in this country than we're losing. That I'm against.
One of the things, you just brought this up, Cary, and I just have to go back to this. We had our ER doc from Henry Mayo here earlier in the year.
Dr. Privet.
Yeah,
Perfect.
And he was here earlier in the year, and he was saying, here it is, marijuana. They say we need medical marijuana to help us not be nauseous when we have cancer. But what he's seeing with the marijuana that people are smoking today, people coming in that cannot stop throwing up.
There is an ingredient in marijuana, if you take away the THC and the drug that gets you high, that is really good for you. I imagine. I keep hearing that. Anyways, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to debate it, but I will say that the THC, the drug that gets you high, doesn't cure anything. That I know for sure. I don't have to be a doctor to say that. Might make you giggle, might make you feel good, but I don't know that you're willing to pay the prices at the end of the day. It's just like I know this. Somebody that's smoking cigarettes and pot, they're doubling to tripling their chance of getting lung cancer, emphysema, or something like that. Goodness. So you really might want to figure that out. Hey, you got one body, mess it up.
No.
I'll never forget my mother going to that doctor and looking to him in the eye and say, "How did I get this?" And he says, "It says it on the box."
Wow. Continuing on with this, Cary, what we were saying, that Santa Clarita residents aren't likely to see dispensaries popping up all around town, even if the initiative passes in November. And here's what's happening. Local laws banning marijuana dispensaries would stand, not may, would stand, even if the measure passes. Here's why. One section within the initiative does lay out rules on local control. It states there is nothing that will supersede or limit the authority of a local jurisdiction to adapt or enforce local ordinance to regulate these types of businesses. The prohibition of marijuana dispensaries, for example, would remain in effect. Another rule bans the distribution, sale, exchange.
For some time. I mean, I have to say that if they legalize it, see how long that lasts.
Another rule bans the distribution, sale, exchange, process, delivery, giveaway, and cultivation of marijuana for medical purposes. Los Angeles County also bans medical marijuana dispensaries. In general, anywhere there is a conflict with a local ordinance, state law would take precedent.
Right.
So, in other words, it just wouldn't be a free-for-all.
We'll see.
For a while.
I mean, I remember going on, what was it, Crossfire on KCAL News.
Oh, right.
They wanted me to go up there. It was myself, and then it was somebody for legalizing pot. And this was 10, 15 years ago, maybe longer. And I said on TV, never will that happen. I was wrong. I was wrong. So I'm never wrong till I'm wrong. And I was wrong. So it's going to be legal here in the state of California. And this is now to the parents out there. Watch your children. It's not okay.
No.
It's not good. It's not healthy. It's not safe. Good luck.
Let me ask you a question, because you see this all the time already. Marijuana users, teenagers in school. Problems at school?
Mm-hmm. And, I was talking to a kid that's almost 19 years old, and he was all proud of himself. He's graduating. He said, I'm graduating high school, and I was real proud of him, too. And he said, see, pot didn't stop me. I said, no, it only took you an extra year.
Ooh, ouch.
And there's nothing he could say. He looked at me like, well, maybe you're right. Because what happens is you lose your motivation. So you're not really motivated like you should be to do what you need to do to accomplish the goals you need to accomplish. So, yeah, congratulations. He did graduate a year later.
Here's another one that I'm sure you can speak to.
Typical pothead, though. Really. It's like, okay, dude. Love you.
Using marijuana daily for 4 years or longer may be related to certain changes in the brain. Not good changes, bad changes in the brain.
Really?
You know what's interesting about that, Cary? You get into a discussion with anybody about this, and depending on which side of the fence they're on, they're quoting you things that work for their argument. But the fact of the matter is, science does not know.
Right.
They know some things, but they don't know everything.
You go on the internet, and you're going to find all these great things about pot. And then you keep looking, and you're going to find all these horrible things about it. So where is it? What's the real truth? I could tell you this, as a person that's been dealing with people for 30-something years, it ain't good. That I could tell you. It ain't good. What I see, especially to children, it's not good.
Here's what 20 years of research shows. 20 years, okay? People who drive under the influence of marijuana double their risk of being in a car crash, and about 1 in 10 daily marijuana users become dependent on the drug, according to the review.
And by the way, hate to break it to you pot smokers, it is addicting. Emotionally for sure, and physically absolutely. That doesn't mean you're going to go through major withdrawals like opiate usage or Xanax or any of those, but what it does mean, you will go, for somebody that's chronic pot smoker, there is withdrawals, anxiety, headaches, loss of sleep, and some other stuff.
In this 20-year research, one of the things that they found was that regular use at about twice daily. Okay, there's a bunch of school dropouts.
Motivation.
Hello.
Short-term memory loss. Oops, long-term.
And we
just talk about that?
And right, and this and then
so I got lucky. I was
this
right.
research backs you up. The research also backs up what you were saying about graduating to other illicit drug use.
And I don't really care about research. Here's what I do know. I've been doing this for 30 years. I see it every day. I'm in the midst of this war. I see what it does to people.
Well, and not only do you see it in action, but you and I see it at the behavioral health unit, because well over half of our patients have a chemical dependency problem because they're self-medicating to help themselves, and they're not helping themselves. In fact, now they've got another big problem.
Yeah, for mental health, there's so many people that, they got major depression. They're a little bit psychotic, they're hearing voices, and they start using drugs to kind of calm all that down, and it works for a while. Then it stops working. Now you got all those mental illness issues plus a drug dependency problem to boot.
In the continuing on with this study, 20-year study, marijuana use carries some of the same risks as alcohol use, such as increased risk of accidents, dependence, and psychosis. And you've talked about the psychosis thing, and so did Dr. Privet.
Yeah.
Sees it all the time.
Well, we see it at the hospital,
coming in and have nothing else except marijuana in their system.
Yeah, I was dealing with a kid that got arrested a couple of weeks ago. He's 19 years old, for driving 40 miles an hour on the freeway. And he was high on pot and paranoid, and he just got into that. But that's not the first one. I've had many people that have been arrested for things similar to that.
And we see in the behavioral health unit all the time, and they see this in ED. For anybody that's sitting out there saying, "So big deal, he got a little psychosis." Oh, no, contraire. If they're in our unit, it's because they're having an acute mental health problem, and they are not having any fun.
And by the way, folks, here, Henry Mayo, right here on McBean, there's a 23-bed acute psychiatric facility. There's only 3 ways you can get in there. You have to be suicidal, homicidal, or gravely disabled, unable to take care of yourself, really. Right. And we stay pretty full.
We do.
From local people.
Yeah.
So, go figure.
And it's not fun.
No. It's not a fun place.
And if they're coming in with a marijuana-induced psychosis, they're not having any fun.
No, they're not. And the scary thing is, if somebody comes in psychotic and there's medications we can give them and usually get them to some kind of baseline, drug-induced psychosis, medication don't always work.
Yeah.
So it can be pretty brutal.
Now
at best.
This is interesting, Cary. Maybe you've heard this before. I hadn't. This is the first time I've seen this. It's likely that middle-aged people who smoke marijuana regularly are at an increased risk of experiencing a heart attack. This is according to the 20-year study.
I have a friend of mine that's no longer here. You know him. I'm not going to mention his name because for the privacy of his family, that had all kinds of heart problems, stents, and all kinds of things, and ended up dying very, very young. And the doctors, they put it towards pot. He didn't smoke cigarettes. So yeah, I've seen it before.
Wow. Here's another one from this study. In a study of more than 50,000 young men in Sweden, those who had used marijuana 10 or more times daily at age 18 were about 2 times more likely to be diagnosed with schizophrenia within the next 15 years for those who had not used the drug.
That came out in a study here in the LA Times front page about 10 years ago, that marijuana, some of the effects was suicide, psychosis, schizophrenia. It was in the LA Times front
Now, if
page.
you think psychosis is no fun, schizophrenia makes that look like a walk in the park. That's bad news.
Well, if you have any kind of mental illness anywhere near in your body, and remember that some of these things, schizophrenia and psychosis, don't happen till later in life, in your mid-20s. So I've seen many, many people in the years that we've been doing behavioral health and substance abuse treatment where people in the mid-20s, bang.
And for our listeners that don't know what schizophrenia is, because a lot of people misunderstand it, they think it's something that it isn't.
Right.
A lot of people think schizophrenia is, so and so's schizo, meaning they have 2 personalities. One moment they're nice, one moment they're not.
Or one moment they're Joe, and the next moment they're Tom. That's not schizophrenia.
But it's not true. Schizophrenia is when you are having schizophrenia problems, you see things others don't see.
The pizza box is talking to you.
You hear things.
No, really.
Yeah, you can feel things. There was a movie called A Beautiful Mind, and at the beginning of the movie, they got the whole audience because he was carrying on a conversation with his roommate in college, and something happened, and they threw a bunch of their furniture out the window, and we found out later that he did not have a roommate.
Right.
He was carrying on a conversation with himself.
Well, we see that in our behavioral health unit, and you all see that on the streets when you're walking and somebody's walking down the street arguing with themselves. Yeah. That's schizophrenia.
Yeah, and those folks are not having any fun at all. I mean, if that can be induced just by marijuana. Cary, think of that. Now that's getting into the brain since you're about 18 years of age. That's the way that the survey put it, up until they become an adult. Think about that. Think about what's happening to your brain during that time. It's kind of like what you were saying about your mother going in and asked the doctor, how did this happen?
Right. Well, we live this every day, don't we?
Well, boy, do we. Do we.
To see some of these people that come into our mental health unit, let me just put it to you this way. If I could take any of these kids or people that are using drugs or whatever the deal, and put you in my pocket and just let you hang out with me for one day, you would not believe what we deal with. I mean, you can't even talk about it. You wouldn't believe it.
Well, now this is interesting. This goes on to talk about a growing number of medical marijuana users are choosing to use vaping devices rather than smoking the drug. And this according to Reuters. Some people believe vaporized marijuana is safer. Several states, including New York and Minnesota, do not allow people to smoke medical marijuana.
I'm not going to get into what's safe or what's not. I am going to say that it's all pretty dangerous stuff. And adults, you're going to do what you want to do, but we have kids that are watching us too. And remember that. If you want to... the problem I have too is a lot of these kids say, well, my parents do it. And I'm sorry, do what I say, not what I do doesn't work.
No.
If you want your kids not to be using drugs or drinking alcohol or pulling somebody out of the car by the hair if you're getting pissed off, then be a role model. Be what you want your kids to be. Be what you want your kids to be.
That's a very good challenge. Mm-hmm. Be what you want your kids to be. This business of do as I say, don't do as I do.
How does your kids learn how to drive? By watching.
Well, the first person they see is their parents.
Right. So if you drive fast, run red lights, text,
cursing and screaming at everybody on the road,
screaming at people, what are your kids learning?
Same thing.
Exactly. If you're polite, stop for red lights, wear your seatbelt, what does your kids learn?
Yeah.
be what you want your kids to be.
Our family got into doing the seatbelt thing long before it became a law because my wife and I just figured out, you know what? That's really the safe thing to do. So let's just start buckling up. And it became a habit with us, and we never got in the car without doing it. So along came the seat buckle law, and we said, well, we've been doing that for a long time.
Well, I wasn't. But you know what, think about it. If you're driving 60 and you turn this way and you turn back and you hit somebody and your car stops, do you? No. If you have a seatbelt, the answer is yes. If you don't, you're going that way. Makes sense to me to wear one. I was dealing with this poor kid named Faith. I'll never forget, a great kid. She was coming to my groups really to help other kids, and she was learning how to sign and wanted to work with the mentally handicapped kids. And they were on the freeway, and something happened. The car flipped. She didn't have her seatbelt right through the sunroof and dead.
Well, I can tell you a story that happened to a nephew of mine. His dad had to slam on his brakes, and my nephew was, I'm going to say he was maybe 6 years old. He flew out of the front seat, and when the car stopped, he had the ashtray, the car's ashtray, in his mouth. That's what he was hanging on. His mouth opened up, and he was screaming, and he went right over the ashtray. That's almost unbelievable, but it happened.
Wow.
Because they weren't using seatbelts. Anyway, wow.
Yeah, there's laws out there for reasons.
That's true.
And they're for our own protection, and we fight them.
And the protection of society. Remember,
right, of course,
we have to be protected from people who don't do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, and you might be the greatest driver there is, but...
And by the way, before we take a break, Cary, I want to do something, and I know that this is on your heart too.
Yeah.
Friday, I sent an email to our sheriff department, to Captain Johnson, and to Shirley, our friend Shirley over there, and to Brenda Canberra, and told them how much my wife and I appreciated what they do in this town.
Oh, absolutely.
They don't hear that enough.
No. It's like we were telling the highway patrolman that was here a couple weeks ago, thanks for all you do. He says, we don't get that much. No. What do you mean? You're out there trying to save our lives. Why wouldn't you get that?
It's horrible to hear them say they don't.
If you think about that, we appreciate it. And by the way, if you get a ticket, it's because you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
I mean,
don't give the officer
be mad
a
at
hard
the
time.
officer. Yeah, you're speeding, not wearing a seatbelt, talking on the phone. You're doing something stupid, and the cop's doing his job.
Right.
Why are you upset?
Right.
If you get arrested for drunk driving, you should be in jail.
Yeah. And
if you do a crime, be willing to pay the price.
And what they do out there for us.
I'm going to say that again. If you do a crime, be willing to pay the price.
It just goes unsung, Cary, and it shouldn't. More often we should say thank you, because the spotlight gets put on something that was done erroneously, or, well, I shouldn't even say that because the final word hasn't come down. So maybe not. We don't always know what's going on. We don't always see all the video.
You're right, but guess what? It's time to take a break. This is Families in Action on our hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.
Welcome back to Families in Action right here on KHTS AM 1220, your hometown station. And by the way, these are the guys that everybody's been listening to in town to find out what's going on with the fire out there. Aren't we happy to have KHTS here in town?
I'm telling you, when I want to know when I'm driving around in Santa Clarita, it's always on AM 1220 because I know what's going on there.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, well, so do I, and I have to tell you that we saw the smoke. We saw it when it first started, and so we started tuning into the radio, and we just checked with everybody that does news and all that, and we didn't hear a thing until we turned it to KHTS, and they had everything.
They were on it, huh?
They were on it. You can trust them.
You can trust them. So hey, if you're driving around in Santa Clarita or sitting at home with your radio, put on AM 1220. You'll be kept up informed of everything.
The latest, greatest.
The latest, greatest. Exactly.
Thanks to Jerry and Carl and all they do.
And all our board ops.
And the board operators and everything. Yeah, we hear they were scrambling. They were doing a great job over the weekend, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hey, Cary, how would you put a cap on what we've been talking about today?
Just, it's plain and simple. We started in the beginning talking about contracts. And here's the deal. More and more kids are playing with drugs at a younger age today. And there's lots of reasons for that. Mostly, I mean, the access to marijuana today is different and easier than ever before because there's so much out there.
Let me ask you something, Cary. When you say a younger age, what age groups are you talking about here?
We're dealing with kids in their 12 and 13 years old that are smoking a lot of drugs and stuff like that, and it's really pretty frightening. And a lot of them are getting it from their parents or sleepovers and that kind of things, other people's brothers and sisters or parents. So it's something that we really need to pay attention to. And remember, parents, that the drugs that these kids are using is nothing like what some of us did when we were young. They're a lot different, a lot more potent, a lot more side effects, a lot more health problems when it comes to these drugs. Addiction is a lot easier. So it's not something that we say, well, we made it through. It's different. And so, and parents and kids say, hey, we're allowed to be hypocrites. If we made mistakes, we don't have to allow our kids to make the same one. That's called insanity.
Right. You're supposed to have wisdom that you pass along to your children.
Exactly. So pay good attention. But I think the largest reason why there's so many more problems today, well, there's a couple of them, put them in perspective. One is social media.
Oh, boy.
I mean, there's nothing. It's great, isn't it? But it's also horrible. I could tell you that a 12-year-old kid to a 20-year-old kid, and I'll just stop there. It goes up. The last thing that kid does when they go to sleep every night, right when they turn off all their lights, is check their social media. Say goodbye to their friends and good night. The first thing they do when they wake up before they even go to the bathroom is check their social media and see what's going on. Then they go to school and they're with their buddies all day long. And then they come home. In most homes, mom and dad are working, if they're even living together. We live in California, divorce capital of the world. So who's waiting for the kids? It's not nobody.
The dog.
No, it's not the dog plus all their friends.
Yeah, right.
Either in person or social media.
Yeah.
So the average parent, this is really horrible. I know I talk about it all the time, spend between 2 and 10 minutes a day with their 12-year-old and up. 2 and 10 minutes. How was your day? It was good. How was school? It was okay. Have any homework? I done it. Are you hungry? I ate. And they're right back in their bedrooms on their little cell phones or computers or iPads or whatever it is they're doing with their friends.
And now it's summertime, so all of that has just increased, right?
So, yeah, peer pressure today is, I can tell you,
off the charts?
It's off the charts. It's so much different and stronger than it has ever been before. And that's not just for drugs.
Yeah.
That's for drugs, for sex.
But parents can help with that. That's what we're saying. You sit down, you talk with your kids. Don't let them be at the mercy of that.
If your child is 14 or 12 or 15 or whatever age and is getting all their influence and wisdom from their friends, they're in trouble.
Boy, are they.
If they're that young and they're getting wisdom and knowledge from you, a lot better. Now, I don't know how they can do that and be with their friends for 23 3/4 of an hour every day. They need to be with you too. So spend time, have dinner, do things with your kids, talk to your kids. Don't back off.
You know, and we always say it at the beginning of the show, Cary, but let's say at the end of the show, free parent support group every Tuesday from 7 to 9 at Canyon High School.
Every Tuesday.
So if you're sitting
out
there
I'll
saying,
be there. I run it.
Cary guarantees he'll be there.
I'll be there.
And you know, that's great, because here we are talking about all these things they can do with their kids. If you need some help, this is the place to go. It's free.
It really is. On that note, we're going to say goodbye. You can watch this show every Monday, I know, on Time Warner, Channel 20 at 4 p.m.
It's going to be on YouTube.
It's going to be on YouTube. No excuse not to watch it, listen to it, or see it.
Go to hometownstation.com and you can watch you can listen to the podcast. Well, you can watch the podcast too, but it won't be too exciting.
So, and hey, thanks for listening. This is Families in Action on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. Be careful out there.